All right, Ron, look forward to it. Less than a week before the election, Iowa's Secretary of State says he stands by his decision to challenge the voter registrations of more than 2,000 people. Pate says the people had reported at some point over the last decade that they weren't U.S. citizens, but voted or registered to vote. KTIV State Capitol reporter Connor Hendricks looks at why Pate says he felt the need to challenge those registrations.
There are names, and in my opinion, when the dust all settles, we will have people who shouldn't be voting.
Iowa Secretary of State Pate acknowledges that not every one of the 2,200 names on his list is not a U.S. citizen. This comes after some county auditors, like Linn County Auditor Joel Miller, have reported that some of the names on Pate's list are citizens.
We have had 15 confirmed U.S. citizens that are on that non-citizen list as of last night. So I submitted another 13 names today. I'm expecting all those people that were on that list are going to be U.S. citizens as well.
Pate says he had to use Iowa Department of Transportation records to try and discover potential non-citizens who have voted, because the federal government won't give him access to a database that contains information on people's citizenship status.
Because of the timing of driver's licenses, some of them may have become a citizen since they filled out that form. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating.
Pate says he felt the need to challenge these names due to conspiracy theories and concerns over the election's integrity.
Because we've had so much pressure put on the elections process across the country about not only non-citizens, but about anything that's not got full transparency in an election. And this is the closest we could come to providing that transparency at this time.
Miller, who ran against Pate in 2022, says if 10% of the voters flagged so far in Linn County are actually citizens, Pate's list is flawed.
So that list should not be used. We should not be implementing that on election day on a statewide basis. If it's that way in Linn County with our 150, I'm sure it's that way across the state of Iowa.
Pate says that none of the voters who are being challenged have been removed from the voter rolls. They can still vote on a provisional ballot. They'll have to return to the county auditor's office within a few days to prove their citizenship with something like a U.S. passport, and then their vote will be counted. At the Iowa Capitol Bureau, I'm Connor Hendricks reporting.